course, we're talking about Power of Polybase with SQL Server, true data virtualization. And the reason we picked up topics, because this is much more relevant now. It's getting more popular now. The people are asking, how do I use it? What are the capabilities? And that's what we are trying to cover today. So I'll start introducing myself. My name is Haider Raza. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. I'm in IT for more than 25 years, even though I look 25. But I'm in IT for more than 25 years. My experience has always been around data, different aspect of data, like operational databases, data warehouses, ETL, and Polybase, and what data virtualization sit quite well with me.
Hello, everyone. This is Manish Kumar. I'm Senior Cloud Solution Architect with Microsoft. Of course, I don't look like 25, so I won't lie. But yeah, I'm into industry for like 22, 23 years now. Almost spent all my life working on SQL Server and now Azure SQL. And planning to spend the rest of my life, work life on SQL. I just love this product. So today, we are going to talk about data virtualization in SQL Server using Polybase. We'll see how the journey has been, because when Polybase came in SQL Server 2016, and there were some changes happening in 2019, a massive change came in 2022. So we are going to discuss the journey of Polybase. If you are looking to do some performance improvement in the queries which you are running on the external tables, probably the solution is to go with Pushdown Computation. That is what we'll have a quick look at. We will quickly move to cloud. Now, SQL Server cannot be separated from cloud versions of SQL. It's getting integrated day by day. So we'll quickly go and see how Azure SQL Managed Instance does the data virtualization. We'll come back to SQL Server, discuss some of the use cases, and then a quick demo to show how Polybase works.
OK, so data virtualization in SQL Server. So when we say data virtualization, as the name suggests, the core concept here is that you don't want to move the data. So data stays wherever it is. So you're not changing the data. You're not moving the data. You're not changing the format of the data. Data stays as it is. And you wanted to access those data from SQL Server. You wanted to do the transformation. And you wanted to export if needed. So that's the concept is. The key concept here is we don't want to touch the data at the source system. But another point I would like to highlight, which is why it's becoming more relevant nowadays, is we wanted to access the data in near real time. So we want to access the data wherever it is now. So we don't want to, if you look at the typical ETL world, the data is mostly a day old at least. So it's a stale data in the new world. So we wanted to pick up the data, access the data now. We want to do the transformation. We want to do the analytics. And then we wanted to keep the result if you want. Otherwise, ad hoc analysis, lots of people doing ad hoc analysis as well. So that's the core concept of what the data virtualization is. Now, in terms of Polybase, we can talk about next slide. Yeah.
So Polybase enables your SQL Server to connect to a multitude of data sources like Teradata, Oracle, another SQL instance, MongoDB. And the best part is you can use the same T-SQL queries which you are very well versed at while working at SQL Server. So you are using same T-SQL queries. It appears as the remotely present data in these data stores are locally present in your SQL Server instance. So it is just like querying another table in your SQL instance. You do not need to install any client connection software for this. The connectors are built in. So this gives you, like, you have some tables in SQL Server, you have tables, some data in Oracle, some data in S3, some data in blob storage. You can actually go query them, get a high-level overview and join them and show the results coming out of that just by querying the data which sits in SQL as well as in the remote data stores without actually bringing any data from the remote data stores to SQL.
Okay, so this diagram is for SQL Server 2022. On the right-hand side is not the area of focus. It's just to let you know what we are trying to show here, that from SQL Server 2022, you can take the backup and keep your backup on a storage. Whether it's Azure storage or third party, you can do that. And you can restore database from those storage as well. So that's the capability we're trying to show on the right. But the left side, which is relevant here today. So in 2022, SQL Server 2022, Polybase has been enhanced. So it's got two aspects now, the REST API and Polybase. So if you have a database, if you have a data which you are trying to access, exist in a storage like Azure storage, ADLS Gen 2 or S3, behind the scene it uses REST API. But if you wanted to access data from other data sources like another SQL Server or Oracle, etc., then it uses Polybase. But you need to install Polybase in both the cases. So it's behind the scene in taking care of that. There are two options, T-SQL, and most of you would know that. Open row set is there for a long time, and external table is also there for a long time. But open row set would allow you to do ad hoc access to your database, to data, whether it's sitting on a storage or whether it's sitting in external database. And customer also uses open row set to import and export data into SQL Server or export to the storage. External table would allow, the good thing about external table is the structure of your table persists in your SQL Server. So the structure persists, but the data doesn't persist in the SQL Server. The data is in the external storage. So that's what the external table is. It supports 3 types or 4 types of types of data in file. So Parquet file, JSON, CSV, and Delta. I think Delta has been added recently in 2022. The connector which we're trying to show, because it's only showing S3, ADLS, Gen 2, and blob storage, because we are talking about data lake virtualization. So you still have access to rest of the databases which Manish mentioned, the Teradata, Oracle, SQL Server, etc. So that is there. So now it's open up a new horizon. I will talk about in use case and demo that you can do much more than what you only have data within your SQL Server database. So
now let's quickly see the journey of data virtualization and Polybase. So Polybase was present with PDW, Parallel Data Warehouse. It was first introduced in SQL Server 2016. And our aim was to access HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System, without actually getting the data from Hadoop to SQL and accessing it using the normal T-SQL. And that is where 2016 came, and it supported HDFS. Now, the good part is, because Azure Blob Storage has Web HDMS, that means Polybase supported Azure Blob Storage as well. So 2016 came with Hadoop connectivity and Azure Blob Storage support to access the data using SQL Server commands. We can use open row set there and create external tables. There was a big change when it came to SQL Server 2019. This is where a lot of connectors were built into the SQL Server engine. So you can directly get the data from Oracle, MongoDB, Teradata, or another SQL instance. You can see Cosmos DB over there in the slide. You can access Cosmos DB using MongoDB APIs. Okay, another big thing which came in 2019 was support to the generic ODBC drivers, What does that mean? That means any of the data sources which supports ODBC, like Excel, Hive, Spark, anything, can be accessed through the Polybase. So that was a massive, big change which came in 2019. It kept with create external table and open row set as it was in 2016. Again, 2022, we could see the need of getting the data from S3 compatible storage, and that is where we had to get the Polybase service out of SQL engine, and that was not a very efficient way of doing that. So what we did is we went with REST API support. So at this moment, as Heather said, when it comes to accessing any S3 compatible object storage or Azure Blob Storage or ADLS Gen 2, it is REST API which is being used. When it comes to the rest of the databases or the remote storage systems, it is still the Polybase. You still need to install Polybase and all those what already Heather mentioned. Another thing which came up in 2022 was support to Parquet files and Delta tables, which was not there in 2019. And the way to query your data stores, you can use CTAS as well. So you can create table as select now. And we keep supporting open row set and create external table. Open row set, if you have worked on SQL Server, it has been from ages, and it still works pretty well at the moment as well. So that has been a tremendous journey of Polybase, continuous. One thing which is important, probably I missed, is HDFS support is retired. So SQL Server 2022 does not support Hadoop anymore. So that is a big change which has come with SQL Server 2022.
Okay, so pushdown computation. This is something new has been added. And the reason is that with the feedback that, okay, external table is slow, accessing data is, from external sources is slow. So that's why this has been added. And what does it do is just delegate some of the capability, like joining, some of the computation to the external sources where you are getting data. So now if you look at the pre-pushdown world, if you wanted to access data from, say, 3 different sources, you would end up getting data, all the data. You know, there's no way you can filter out to say, okay, give me only this data where this is the criteria. So you get everything, then do apply your transformations and keep it. Now, with the push down, some of these capabilities, some of those predicates is pushed down to the external source where the data reside. And that means you are offloading some of the work from SQL Server, and that's enhanced the performance. And because your external source is good at data, whatever you have, because the data reside in the external source, so they are good at applying all those predicates, and that means it's much more efficient. And that's why it's been added. There are some T-SQL which block it. So there is a full list there on the documentation. You can see on the website. The other thing I would like to highlight is when you look at the estimated execution plan, you will see only a remote query. So it doesn't tell you what exactly happening within that remote query. But in 2019, we have added a trace flag for 6408. And that means after that, you can know, you know what exactly happening in the remote server. So what exactly is doing. So they give you much more detail than just showing that something happening in the remote server. So that's the new capability which has been added. You can always force the push down to stop, disable it, or make sure it's used. But the optimizer decides the right, whether it's used push down or not.
Okay. We may run short in time, so I'll quickly cover this, and after that, we'll quickly discuss about the use cases and do a demo. We're just moving to cloud for a minute and talk about how SQL Managed Instance supports data virtualization. Okay, Again, SQL Managed Instance supports Azure Blob Storage as well as ADLS Gen 2. You can use same T-SQL queries to query your data sitting there. You can make the joins between your local data as well as blob storage data and ADLS data, etc. There are two ways you can query using open row set and create external table. As Heather mentioned, use it for ad hoc queries, and when it is more of a repeating one, go with the external table. It supports Parquet and CSV at the moment. Indirectly, you can use it for JSON as well. There is one important thing about query partition data, which I would like to cover, is normally your data is distributed in terms of partitions or subfolders, you can say. So you can actually instruct SQL MI to go and look at the right partition so that the number of reads and the processing of data is reduced, and that improves the performance of your query. It can easily be done by using a function called file path, and you put it in the exact path of your partition and go with the where clause, in the where clause. So that is how SQL MI supports. At the moment, more supports may come, but let's get into SQL Server use cases now.
So there are lots of use cases. So I put a couple of them. I'll talk about online data archival. I'm already involved in this use case. I'm working with one of the customers in public sector and also in the retail industry where they are implementing this use case. What we have seen is there are lots of data which exist, and they wanted to archive those data, but they wanted to have it available for business user within SQL Server. So they don't want to build another application where somebody would go and look at the archive data. So they wanted a seamless integration, and that's why this is quite a relevant use case. So I'll show a demo quickly. I'll jump onto the demo. Just to let you know that the Polybase doesn't get installed by default. So if you install SQL Server, Polybase would not be installed. So you have to install it, and you will see these two components at the bottom, which is there. And you have to enable Polybase before you start using it. And I will try to go through some of these steps in the demo. So let me show demo very quickly. So first of all, if you see here there are two tables I'm talking about: sales and category. So go to sales of all the sales over a period of time, and the numbers are there, sales number. But before that, if you see here, there is something called external data source. So you will see all the external data sources in there. And also there is something called external table. So you'll see all the external tables listed out here in SSMS. Okay. So now, in the interest of time, I'll quickly jump on. So first of all, you have to enable it. Okay. Okay, let me connect to the. Yeah, I forgot to connect the VPN. I need to connect to the VPN. But I've already installed Polybase. I've already enabled it. It's just a query to see whether is enabled or not. So returning one, so that means enable it. DMV, just for your information purpose, these are DMVs are inbuilt for Polybase. Now you create a database which I've already created. And you create a master key which I've already done. What I'm going to do here, you have to create a scope credential because I'm trying to connect to the Azure storage, and that's why you need this credential. So I hope it should work. Let me run it. I know I'm running out of the time, but very quick. Good, it's worked. So you're creating a credential to connect to the storage from SQL. Then you create a data source. And data source means you can have multiple data sources to the same storage. But you're creating a data source. And then finally, you create a file format. In this case, because I'm using CSV, so I've created a CSV file format. So the format is created. So the plumbing work is done. So what I'm trying to show now that you have sales data in your database. Now after the database, you have I have put the data in my storage. Okay. So I have to create external file format. I think
you created it.
I've created it. Okay. So just showing open row set.
Have you not? Sorry, you haven't. Sorry.
Okay, let me try. It will fail if it doesn't. Okay. Maybe I haven't. So,
No, you haven't. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, so let me, yeah. Yeah, I think it's time now. But what we are trying to show that you will have a rest of the data in Azure storage, and you're creating. Let me show very briefly. So I'll create a sales table, external sales table, which is pointing to the storage. And once I've done it, I've created a union all here, if you see. So union all, the first part is accessing data from your internal tables, and the second part is getting data from your external tables, and then union all. And then on top of that, I'm creating a view. So that means once the view is there, the user will access the data from view. So there will be no, the user would not know where the data is coming from, and that's the way it is. So that's all. I think we have shown, reach out of the time. But please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my LinkedIn profile if you need any help.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you.